Hi everybody, this is Tom. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I want to talk all about a topic called consistency. So a few people have mentioned struggling with consistency in the comments, and I would say throughout my career, throughout my life, all the things that I've been able to achieve which have been kind of meaningful, skills that I've developed, getting better at anything from skateboarding to juggling to creating zero to finals to learning for my job as a doctor, whatever it is, consistency has been key in developing that skill. And anytime I've tried to develop a skill that hasn't gone anywhere, that I haven't, that I've kind of failed at in a sense, the failure has come as a result of a lack of consistency. So consistency is key. Let's start by looking at why is consistency important. So there's some really good reasons why consistency is important. We'll go through those. The first reason is that it builds momentum. And this kind of ties into the idea of procrastination and not getting things done, not kind of, the project never getting off the ground. If you're trying to lose weight, never getting into the swing of things so the weight starts to come off. If you're preparing for an exam, procrastinating, not doing the revision that you need to do in order to get through that exam, you need to build that momentum. And a really important concept is the concept of inertia. So inertia is the tendency for things to remain the same, for nothing to change. So inertia is the baseline state. Your life won't change in a meaningful kind of positive way unless you take some action. Inertia is this kind of force that keeps anything good from happening, keeps you from learning a new skill, keeps you from developing, progressing in your career, whatever the thing that you're trying to achieve. Inertia is acting against you. And a really good example of this is, I'll give you a terrible drawing of an aeroplane. Here's an aeroplane. When an aeroplane is on the ground and it's sat there, it's loading up with passengers, it's inert, it's not moving anywhere. And then when the passengers are all on the plane and the plane is going to get moving, in order to, let's draw this aeroplane going up into the sky. In order for this plane to take off and get up to altitude, it has to exert an incredible amount of force. In order to overcome inertia, this plane has to release most of the sort of fuel and energy to get up to speed. And then once the plane is cruising, once it's just at altitude, cruising along, and it's all the forces are in balance. So it only has to overcome drag. And once it's up at height, there's very little drag in the atmosphere. There's less atmosphere there, less density to the air. So it doesn't have to exert very much force. Once it's built up the momentum, once it's got past inertia, got up into the air and it's cruising, it uses very little fuel compared to that act of actually getting off the ground, building up speed, getting up to height. So this is the hardest bit of any project. So let's say you're preparing for an exam. The hardest bit is kind of getting up to speed, starting revising, getting the process going, building momentum. Once you have the momentum in a project or anything you're trying to do, if you're trying to lose weight, once you get into the swing of the diet and you built up that momentum, the weight will just keep falling off much easier. So this is the hardest bit, and consistency is what's necessary in order to get up to speed. So if you're inconsistent, if you take a big push, do a big action now, you imagine you're this plane, you might get up to 1,000 feet in the air. And then because you then fall off the bandwagon, you're not consistent, and you go back to square one, the plane falls out the sky back to ground. And then you have to exert all this force again to get back up to 1,000 feet. And then you give up back on the ground. So what you're doing is you stop starting. Instead of being consistent and cruising at altitude, you're always using this maximum amount of force trying to get up off the ground. So consistency was what keeps this momentum going. The next thing is it creates habits. So each time you do a consistent action, if you're learning a language, each time you start learning some vocabulary, learning some grammar, practicing the language, speaking it, listening to it, each time you do that, you're building that habit into your day where this is what you do. You're building the habit of learning that language. A few weeks ago, I decided I was going to use a Duolingo app to learn a bit of Japanese. For sort of 10 days or 2 weeks, I was checking in every day, learning some, and really building up some momentum. And then I fell off and stopped doing that. I've gone back to complete inertia, forgotten everything that I learned, and that habit has disappeared, and now I haven't been doing anything recently. So this is an example of inconsistency and failure as a result of inconsistency, because I was developing that habit and now I don't have that habit anymore. But what you're creating here is a behavioral pattern. So when you have a habit, you develop this behavioral pattern, and that behavior then kind of creates that consistency. So, for example, with brushing your teeth, if you're in the habit of every time you finish your breakfast and you're about to go out of the house, you brush your teeth. Every time before bed, you brush your teeth. And you have that habit of twice a day, you brush your teeth, and you have that behavioral pattern. You don't have to think about brushing your teeth anymore. It's just part of your daily routine. If you're trying to revise for an exam, and every morning you wake up the same time, you put in half an hour or an hour of work revising for that exam, that's part of your habits and your behavioral pattern, and you make consistent progress over time as a result. Same is true of, I have a morning mobility routine. So 5 a.m. every morning, I head to my home kind of garage where there's a gym, do a mobility routine, and particularly a lot of rehab and prehab stuff on my shoulders. And as a result, my shoulders are really strong and they're really stable and everything's going well because I have that behavioral pattern. If you're not consistent, you don't develop those habits and those behavioral patterns that massively help. Other thing is, it's necessary for big goals. So you've probably seen this illustration before. This is you. This is your goal. Now let's imagine that between you and your goal is, say, 1,000 hours of work. This goal could be learning medicine, progressing your career, learning engineering, mathematics, becoming a great sports person in a swimming pool, whatever your goal is. This might take 1,000 hours of work. You can't be inconsistent with this. So if you just feel inspired, you wake up on a Saturday morning, you feel really inspired, and you put in 8 hours of work towards this goal. 8 hours is only a tiny, tiny fraction, less than 1% of your 1,000 hours of work that's needed for this goal. The only way you can achieve this is through consistent, regular action. So if you've got this 1,000 hours and you're trying to achieve this goal within a year, so you've got 52 weeks, that's around 20 hours per week of consistent action that you need in order to achieve this goal. If you just do sort of 40 hours this week and then no hours the next week and no hours the week after that, you're not really making progress. You need to add it, you need to make it sort of consistent over the period of 1 year in order to achieve that goal. The other thing about consistency is it's essential for some goals. So an example here is weight loss. And for many years, I have an enormous appetite. I love food. And if I just leave myself to my own devices, I end up really overeating and putting on weight quite quickly. And so over the last sort of probably 10, 15 years, I've had to be conscious of not putting on too much weight. And when I've not been conscious of that and not really been careful, my weight has very quickly skyrocketed. So I'm always trying to lose weight to an extent. And in the past, my weight loss efforts have been massively held back by inconsistency. And over the past sort of 1.5 years or so, I've really cracked the formula for having a healthy weight, feeling excellent, feeling really healthy. And I feel better than I have done maybe ever with this consistent diet that I've been on. I need to make a video all about this diet because it's been exceptionally good for productivity, focus, energy levels, general health, and how I feel, and having a healthy weight and gaining muscle as well. But consistency wise, so if you imagine this is calories, and these are the days of the week. So you got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And over the course of the week, let's say this is your maintenance calories. So this is how many calories, if you eat this level of calories, your body will stay at the same weight. So this is your maintenance level. So if you go above this level, you lose weight, you gain weight. If you go below this level, you lose weight. So let's say on Monday, you're minus 500 calories. So you're losing weight. On Tuesday, you're minus 400 calories. On Wednesday, you're minus, say, 300 calories. Thursday, you're minus 200 calories. Friday, you're minus 500 calories. So Monday to Friday, you're really careful. You're really paying attention to what you're eating, and you're putting in a lot of effort to make sure you're losing weight. So this is taking you a lot of effort to stay in this calorie deficit over this period. And then on Saturday and Sunday, you go a bit wild. You have cheat days. So Saturday, you go plus 1,000 calories. So you have a pizza. And then on Sunday, you have maybe like an Easter egg or some kind of junk food on top, and you go plus 1,200 calories. So you think, I've been really good all week. This weekend, I'm going to relax and enjoy some food. Well, what happens as a consequence of that? Monday to Friday, if you calculate them all, you're minus 1,900 calories. And then on the weekend, you're plus 2,200 calories. So it's not about what you do on one day. It's about the average over the course of a week, over a month, over a year. So what happens here is the average over the entire week is plus 300 calories. Even though you put so much effort in over the course of the weekdays to losing weight, at the weekend, your sort of binges or your cheat days put you up so high that the average over the course of the week meant that you actually were in a positive surplus of calories. And so with this, you'd actually gain almost a pound of fat. So this is not this is not going to help you lose weight. Okay, well, the next step is there's a problem with consistency. And what is the problem with consistency? Well, mainly it's kind of hard, but if we look at progress and we look at time, and this is the threshold of progress where you hit your goal. Okay, this is success. So time is, you start down here at the very start, and then over time, you put in effort towards your goals. Progress is sort of like how much progress you make towards your goals, really. So what happens is consistent action like this, you make progress over time, eventually you reach your goal. So at the very start, it's exciting. So when you first start a project, it's really exciting. It's like, this is going to be the big thing. This is going to change my life. This is going to change the lives of others. This is going to be so useful for the world. I'm really excited about this project. It's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to get started. Then you start putting in effort and you're like, oh, gosh, this is actually taking some effort, but I'm excited about it. I'm going to keep going. Then you kind of reach doubt. And you go, oh, it's actually quite hard. Don't really think I'm making much progress. My goal is so far away. Is this really the right goal? Am I sure that I want to be doing this? Life was so much easier when I wasn't working towards this goal, and so on. Then you kind of have fatigue. So you start to get tired and you think, oh, I don't know if I can sustain this. Then you get a big one, which is distraction. This is maybe the hardest one to deal with, which is that other goals start to come at you. So, for example, if you're losing weight, the distraction might be, you've got events coming up where there's lots of great food. Maybe you decide instead of kind of cutting weight, you want to bulk up and gain more muscle. So you get distracted by something. Let's say you start a university course and you're excited about learning to do software engineering, and you're really into it, but then you get distracted and maybe somebody says, oh, software engineering is not going to be anything in the future because of AI. You should learn this other thing instead, and get distracted by that other thing. Or it could just be day-to-day distractions, social media, all that other stuff. Then you get the next one, which is boredom. Doing consistent action becomes boring. So I've been uploading these videos for over 40 days now. I'm kind of going through these stages, and I'm still really excited about it, to be honest. I'm probably right at the start, but I have had all these other, fatigue, distraction, boredom, doubt, and so on. And boredom is a big one, particularly when I've written books. Halfway through a book, I always get to a point of it just feels like a grind because it's so boring. That excitement has worn off, and now you're just relying on discipline, consistency, habits, momentum, all that other stuff. Then you kind of get to the point where you dislike it and you are like, I really hate doing this. I don't want to do it anymore. Then you get to adaptation, where you get used to it. This is like this is just how you live life now. So for example, I've been doing the Zero to Finals podcast for about 6 years. There's more than almost maybe 7 years. And I've done, I think it's 750 or something episodes of that podcast. I've adapted to the point where I don't even think about it anymore. It's just part of my routine, and I don't even question the fact that I'm going to be doing 3 podcasts a week. And then you finally get to your goal of mastery. And so I suppose with these podcasts, I'm kind of at this stage of mastery where I know exactly what I'm doing. I know how to produce the podcasts. and without even thinking about it, I can get the work done. So this is your goal, ultimately, with mastery. But the problem is you've got all of these steps on the way that are going to try and get you to be less consistent. All of these distractions are what are going to prevent you from reaching your goal. And your job is to overcome these distractions, stay consistent, and keep that upward trajectory of progress over time. And that's the challenge. So let's have a look at how to increase consistency. Or how do we essentially stay consistent over time? First step, define why. So this is, by this I mean, what is the reason you're doing this thing? And not just, I want to do the thing, but have a good kind of deep reason that fits with you as a person. So for me, for example, with the weight loss, I want to be healthy for many reasons, but this would be, for my kids. I want to stay healthy, so I'm around as long as I can be, to have my kids, enjoy being with the kids and to be there for them. Healthy so that I can achieve goals. If I'm unhealthy, and when I've been overweight in the past and unhealthy, I just simply can't be productive. And being productive is a massive part of my personality, something I really enjoy. And when I'm not healthy, I can't do that. And that kind of makes me sad. Next thing is for my curiosity. So I'm very curious what will happen if I do things. So I've always been curious. Well, I've been curious for a long time what would happen if I created this YouTube channel. Without the consistency of doing these daily videos, I never got to the point of putting out enough videos where I found out what would happen if I did this YouTube channel. So I have to be consistent with putting out these videos to find out what happens if I put out these videos. Will people engage with the videos? Will they be useful? Will I get better at making videos? All these kind of things. I'm curious what will happen. And so I have to be consistent to follow that curiosity. And another one you could have to help others, to be useful, and to put things out into the world that people will enjoy and benefit from. The next step is to set goals. And I did a video a couple of days ago all about setting goals. I have two sort of frameworks for setting goals. One is the outcome and one is the output. So you need both of these really. So the outcome is what you aim to happen. And this can be quite vague. So for example, with these YouTube videos, the outcome I'm aiming for is for the channel to grow. What does that mean? Well, you could define it in terms of subscribers, but I don't know that that's very helpful. You could describe it in terms of views. You could describe it in terms of kind of the community and the comments. But I'm not going to define it. What I'm going to aim for is the output. And this is, for example, this is what action you take regularly. So this action should put you on a trajectory towards the outcome. So the action for me is simply put out a video every day with this YouTube channel. Very simple action, but within that action, it's very, very clearly defined. I need to put a video out every day. The parameters are not very well defined, which means I can adjust them. So it's not that I'm going to put out a video, say, on one kind of topic every day. It's just put out a video every day, and I'll adapt that day on day depending on how I learn, how I, how people respond. And so I'm constantly getting feedback and going through feedback cycles. So with the goals, define the kind of big, vague outcome and then the very specific, clear action. So the big, vague outcome could be you want to get better at computer coding, very vague, but the output is to code some kind of application every week or every day. Or to sit down for 4 hours every day and do coding, working on a project, whatever your output is. Next step is to track your progress. And I'm obsessed, if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you'll see that I'm obsessed with tracking progress. I think tracking progress is maybe the most powerful thing you can do to make sure you're staying with your goals and consistent over time. If you're not tracking every meaningful aspect of, every aspect of your life where you're trying to achieve something, you're really falling short. And all the success that I've had in life with exams, with projects, with goals, everything has been through tracking progress. I've got lots and lots of videos on track that include stuff on how to track your progress. The adaptive revision schedule is the video I would recommend watching if you're doing some kind of exam. But you can see my weekly review videos where I track my progress. So I track it, I track daily progress and weekly progress. And these are very clearly defined numbers. So for example, with weight loss, every day I'll track my weight and my waist circumference. When it comes to these output goals that I have every week, like 3 workouts a week, 2 cardio sessions a week, daily mobility routine, my climbing sessions, my my Zero to Finals video production, these videos productions. Every week I track all of those to make sure I'm on track with these goals. Okay, the next thing is to aim for perfection, but accept imperfection. So really aim for maybe like 80 to 90% perfection. What do I mean by this? Well, if you achieve every single goal every week, that's perfection. But some weeks or some days you might not miss your goal, or you might miss your goal. The issue that we have with this is that, for me personally, I kind of build momentum by doing everything, making sure I hit every target. So with this YouTube channel, putting out a video every single day, I really feel a pressure to put out the video every day. Good pressure, I'm happy with it. This is how I want it to be. But it kind of ensures that I put out a video every single day. The risk is then that if you miss one day, you throw everything out and completely lose all your momentum, lose track of everything, and lose all your consistency. Same is true of a diet. You kind of stick to the diet really, really strictly. Then you have one kind of slip up day, maybe you have a stressful day, you're feeling hungry, you eat some kind of junk food, and then before you know it, you kind of go off completely and you go weeks without sticking to the diet anymore. So this is when you stick to rigidly to perfection. The problem is then that any kind of imperfection and everything gets thrown off. Whereas if you aim for kind of 80 or 90%, you're allowed to kind of slip up and not do perfectly every time. So if you look at my weekly review videos, you'll notice there's some weeks where I miss goals. I might not do a cardio session, or I might not put out a podcast, or whatever it is. The key is that I then get back on track immediately. So don't give up. If you miss one or 2 outputs. So you've got these output goals. You're going to you do these things regularly. Don't give up if you miss 1 or 2. Just get back on track. Get straight back on track and back into it. So, for example, the last couple of days I've been off my diet because various reasons, but kind of we were a bit ill in our household, a bit tired, feeling a bit sort of run down, lots of things. So I had a couple of days where I just really wasn't feeling anything in terms of motivation and stuff. Decided that I was just going to be a bit more relaxed on my diet, enjoy some nice food, and then today I'm back on it and back on track. If I'd have carried on in that, not being on the diet and not got back on track quickly, it could have gone weeks or months, and I would have gained weight, felt terrible, and everything would have fallen apart. So get straight back on track. It's okay if you miss a couple of days, but get back into the consistent swing of things. Next one is to automate decisions. This is really important because there's this thing called decision fatigue. And I don't know if you will, once you kind of are aware of it, you'll probably find that you see it everywhere, and you really become aware of, becoming fatigued with too many decisions. This is something I definitely am aware of. What I do, I've got sort of quite a few different roles. I wear lots of different hats. I've got my kind of husband hat, father hat, Zero to Finals hat, Tom Watchman YouTube hat, my GP hat. But then I'm also kind of running this as a business. So I've got all those kind of administrative roles within that. I get loads of emails every day. I'm making like tons and tons and tons of decisions. Each one of these decisions creates a little bit of decision fatigue. So anytime I allow more decisions to come into my life, I develop more decision fatigue, and then my ability to make decisions gets worse. So if I'm waking up in the morning and I've got too many options for example, what to wear, what to eat, what to do, what routine to do that day, that'll just ruin my ability to make decisions. If I wake up first thing in the morning and I go straight on my emails, I'll have a whole bunch of decisions that I have to make, and that's already fatigued me. If I go on to social media, that then, once you're on a social media account, kind of scrolling and doing all that stuff, that just adds decision after decision. Should you watch this video? Should you go to the next thing? Should you, stop watching this video? Whatever it is, you're making loads and loads of decisions. And that is taking away your ability to make important decisions. So later in the day, I might have a decision, should I stick to my diet and go with this? Or should I have this kind of immediate gratification, pleasurable food to eat? If you're so fatigued from all the decisions you made earlier in the day, you're less likely to make the right decision in that situation. So you'll probably notice, if you've been watching these videos regularly, my fashion choices are extremely sort of boring and repetitive. And that's a conscious decision that I made a long time ago, that I wasn't going to add too much sort of variability to what I wear. I pretty much wear the same thing day in and day out. Obviously, it's clean and fresh, and I cycle through things, but I'm not making decisions about what I wear. Equally, I've got a bald head. I don't have to make a decision about a haircut. I always stay shaven. My face is cleanly shaven. I don't have to think about a lot of things. My diet is pretty much identical day in, day out. I eat the same foods. So all of these things are intentionally decisionless. They're pre-made decisions. And that's to help me make decisions better about the things that are important. So any kind of decisions that you can automate will help you make good decisions in the places where it matters. Next one is to schedule action. It's nice if you have this concept of you wake up and decide what to do that day. The issue is if you've got a big goal that you're chasing and you need to be consistent, waking up and deciding what to do that day means that you're less likely to choose the consistent action. But if you schedule that action into the day, so you take a task, say you're learning how to code or do mathematics or study medicine, and you've got a 3-hour block of things that you need to do each day towards that goal, by scheduling those in, you'll make sure they get done. If you don't schedule them in, other pointless things will come and fill your time. So take the most important task and schedule that into your peak time. For me, that's kind of 6 a.m. till about 10 or 11 a.m. I always put that important task that needs to get done as part of my goal, that consistent action I need to take, into my peak time and protect that time so that it's used for that goal. I never succeed if I kind of say, I'll do that if I get round to it. That will never happen. It's only when I schedule and put it in a time slot that it actually gets done. And I also put it in a specific place. So I knew yesterday evening, 6 a.m. I was going to be in the office and I was going to get this video recorded. And that's where I am here, 6 a.m. getting this video recorded to make sure that I get a video out every day. If I left it and said, I'll record a video when I feel like it, I guarantee you I wouldn't record a video today. The final one is accountability. So make your consistent action somehow you become accountable to that thing. And to be honest, the best thing for this is, for most people, is to have others involved. If you have other people somehow involved, that's much more likely to make you accountable. So for example, you could get a trainer or a coach. So for example of this, I've been trying to get my parents to do kind of weight training and mobility training for many, many years. And the recent few years, they've both got personal trainers. And the consequence of that is they have been incredibly consistent. Several times a week, both of them will do sort of strength and mobility workouts, which is incredible. But it's because they both feel this sense of obligation to their trainer to actually do those workouts. If it wasn't for the trainer, no way they would do the workouts. It's purely because they feel kind of sense of a sense of letting down their trainer. They've got that scheduled in and there's nothing they can do about it. They have to do it because their trainer is dependent on them. So because of their accountability to their trainers, they've been doing this. They're in the best shape they've been in years, which is fantastic. The other thing you can do is make your goals public. So you can tell other people, this is what I'm going to do. And then you kind of feel a sense of embarrassment or, obligation to do it because other people are watching. My goals on this YouTube channel are very public. Everybody can see what my goals are. And so this has actually helped me to stay accountable, because every week I do my weekly review on a Sunday, and so I publish it on a Monday, and people can see whether I've actually been achieving my goals or not. The other thing you can do is some kind of upcoming event. So if you've got an exam coming up, or let's say summer is coming and you want to get in better shape so that when you're on the beach, you don't, so you look in good shape. These kind of upcoming events are useful to make sure you get in shape, or you follow your goals and stay consistent. That's the end of the video. That's everything I got to say this morning on consistency. Very interested to hear on your experiences of consistency. If you want a nice version of these notes where there's kind of nicely illustrated and summarize, so that instead of watching this whole video back in a week's time, if you think, oh, I'd like to refresh what I was thinking about with consistency, you can just have a look at these colorful notes. Then you can get those on the Zero to Finals Patreon. That's patreon.com/0tofinals. And I'll see you in the next video, which will be tomorrow.